Welcome to COHEN Media. In this video, we will analyze the seeming legal possibilities to which Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, would end up in jail or maybe in one of his numerous towers. But before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel for more informative and educational videos from our studio. Thank you for being here. Despite having lost the 2020 US presidential election, President Donald Trump is seemingly doing everything in his power to maintain control of the White House. Surrounded by Republican political leaders who are bolstering his lies about widespread voter fraud, the president has refused to concede to President-elect Joe Biden, and has kept himself busy by replacing senior Pentagon officials with loyalists. While the president's apparent attempt to shore up his influence with military leaders is certainly dangerous, few experts believe he is likely to stage an actual coup. Instead, the consensus is that Trump will be leaving office one way or another, and that even he knows that. What Trump also knows, though, and why he is perhaps so desperately clinging to the fantasy that he won, is that, when he does leave, he could face prison time. And it's that risk of prosecution looming over him that is making Trump tighten his iron grip on the presidency. Indeed, once the president leaves office on 20th January, he will be vulnerable to a dozen legal investigations and civil suits involving his business practices, as well as his taxes. He is under investigation for insurance fraud, criminal tax evasion, grand larceny, and a scheme to defraud, according to the New York Times. He could also face legal trouble for campaign finance violations and bribery. Not only does Trump face a number of legal battles, he also owes millions of dollars in income taxes, real estate debts, and other loans, the New Yorker reports. It's the office of the presidency that's keeping him from prison and the poorhouse, Yale history professor Timothy Snyder told the outlet. If Trump does end up in prison as a result of his various civil and criminal legal transgressions, he will join the ranks of several of his former associates who have been charged or imprisoned under his administration. Still, despite so many others around him having faced legal consequences, the likelihood of Trump himself spending any time behind bars is probably low, at least based on historical precedent. No former US presidents have spent time in prison or jail, even including Richard Nixon, who received a pardon from President Gerald R. Ford in 1974 after resigning in disgrace from the presidency for obstruction of justice and abuse of power in the Watergate scandal. According to the New York Times, Ford wrote in his pardon that the tranquility to which this nation has been restored by the events of recent weeks could be irreparably lost if Nixon had faced criminal charges. Further, when the House of Representatives voted to impeach President Bill Clinton in 1998 on one charge of perjury and another for obstruction of justice, for abusing his power by initiating a sexual relationship with a 22-year-old intern, it was possible that Clinton could have eventually faced criminal charges. While he was not removed from office, the Senate voted to acquit him. Clinton could have had more consequences upon the completion of his second term. But no criminal charges were ultimately filed. Things might be different with Trump, though. There's a chance he could face legal action for his federal, criminal, and civil crimes once he leaves office, and is no longer afforded the protections of immunity from prosecution that are granted to the president. When Mueller offered his ruling in the Russia investigation, former federal prosecutors stated that Trump's conduct would result in multiple felony charges for obstruction of justice. Meanwhile, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris stated in 2019 that, if elected president, it was her belief that the Justice Department would have no choice, and that they should pursue charges of obstruction against Trump. And what do you know? The California senator will make her way to the White House come January 20, 2021 as the Vice President of the United States. It's certainly interesting that, after having spent the last several years threatening his political opponents with jail time, and encouraging his followers to chant, "Lock her up" about Hillary Clinton, Trump might be facing prison right now. Whether or not he will actually go, or even face charges, remains unknown, but Trump sure seems scared about the prospect. In recent weeks, the president has reportedly expressed his concerns over ongoing investigations and the potential for new ones to his advisors. The New York Times reports. Perhaps that's why he spent the last 3 years asking aides whether he could preemptively pardon himself and his family. Irony sure can be sweet. But the suggested number of votes is no coincidence. Biden won Georgia with an 11,779 lead, and the state's election results were recounted. Trump also leaned heavily on conspiracy theories to back up his claiming ballots were burned and shredded and that dead people somehow voted. Raffensperger pushed back against Trump's false claims, telling him that, "President Trump, we've had several lawsuits, and we've had to respond in court to the lawsuits and the contentions. We don't agree that you have won." As Raffensperger doubled down on Georgia's fair election process, Trump then implied that there would be legal repercussions if Raffensperger and General Counsel Ryan Germany don't find him the votes, which he claims have been shredded. It is more illegal for you than it is for them because, you know, what they did and you're not reporting it, Trump said. That's a criminal offense. And you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. Politicians from both major parties wasted no time condemning Trump's call when the audio came to light. Former House Speaker Paul Ryan said in a statement, efforts to reject the votes of the Electoral College and sow doubt about Joe Biden's victory strike at the foundation of our republic. The Trump campaign had ample opportunity to challenge election results, and those efforts failed from lack of evidence. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez also called Trump's actions an impeachable offense, noting that if it was up to me, there would be articles on the floor quite quickly. He's attacking our very election. Perhaps it was Ocasio-Cortez's signaling of impeachment that caused some speculation over just how criminal Trump's latest actions are. But as much as disdain as Trump's actions on this phone call has earned him, is it enough to land him in jail? Technically, it could. House Democrats and former prosecutors Representative Ted Lieu and Kathleen Rice made a criminal referral to FBI Director Christopher Wray on Monday, writing in a letter to Wray that as members of Congress and former prosecutors, we believe Donald Trump engaged in the solicitation of, or conspiracy to commit, a number of election crimes. Lieu also confirmed the letter was sent in a tweet. We ask you to open an immediate criminal investigation into the president. In case there is concern that this particular investigation may fall through, Trump has a veritable party platter of other charges he could be facing in 2021. Should the FBI open an investigation into Trump's phone call, it would only be one of many other criminal investigations he is subject to once he leaves the White House. From tax evasion to bribery to insurance fraud, the mountain of charges Trump faces is high. The likelihood of Trump, as well as his family members, serving time in prison definitely exists, and that's one reality he can't run from, no matter how many lies he spews and theories he digs up. Trump himself is reportedly concerned about the possibility that investigations and debtors will close in on him when he leaves Washington next month, to the extent that he has reportedly discussed preemptively pardoning his 3 eldest children, and potentially himself, too. He would not be the first president to wield the power of the pardon. Gerald Ford, famously, pardoned his predecessor Richard Nixon in 1974, after the eruption of the Watergate scandal. But legal analysts believe that Trump's ability to protect himself and his family is ultimately quite limited. Pardons only apply to federal crimes and do not extend to state laws. Among the most prominent investigations into Trump's conduct is being pursued by the Southern District of New York, leaving the president vulnerable. That case looks particularly strong. It centers around the prosecution of Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, who was convicted for lying to Congress and to various financial crimes, including an illegal hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels, who Trump allegedly had an affair with. The government claimed that Cohen did not act alone, and that he was assisted as an unindicted co-conspirator known as Individual One who ran an ultimately successful campaign for President of the United States. As for the possibility of a self-pardon, lawyers are divided. Trump claimed in 2018, at the height of the special counsel's Russia investigation, that he had the absolute right to pardon myself, citing numerous legal scholars. But, a former U.S. Court of Appeals judge wrote this week, those scholars are wrong. The president has no right under the Constitution to pardon himself, J. Michael Luttig said. Lawrence Tribe, a Harvard constitutional law professor, told The Guardian that the very idea of a self-pardon flies in the face of the universally agreed proposition that the pardon power can't be used as a license to commit future crimes. In his attempt to recall the presidential election on Saturday, President Donald Trump reportedly demanded during a now-leaked call with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger that the latter find 11,780 votes for him to win Georgia over President-elect Joe Biden. During the hour-long phone call, which was first obtained by the Washington Post, Trump insisted to Raffensperger that he, rather than Biden, was the winner of the state's votes. All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have. Because we won the state, Trump said on the call, where White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, Georgia's Secretary of State Office's General Counsel Ryan Germany, and various lawyers were all present. He added, the basic problem is that, if a president were able to pardon himself, he could commit crimes with impunity throughout his presidency. He could ransack the Treasury, bribe the Chief Justice to overrule Roe v. Wade, and shoot someone on Fifth Avenue knowing he could never be punished. As for the possibility of Biden doing a Ford and pardoning Trump, it's incredibly unlikely given the enmity between the two men. They are yet to exchange so much as a phone call since the election, with Trump reportedly planning to boycott his successor's inauguration, and hold a rival rally at the same time. Regardless, Trump is set to be a post-presidency like no other. Time will tell if he'll be swapping his suit, and red MAGA cap, for an orange jumpsuit. Thank you for watching our videos. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell for timely notification when we upload more interesting and educative videos like this one. Let us know what you think in the comments section as to whether Trump will end up in jail or one of his Trump towers. Thank you for being here.